What's up, everyone? Marc Lobliner, TigerFitness.com. I'm not wearing my hat, out of respect. There's a video in remembrance of a man that I learned a lot from, Dr. Jim Wright. I worked on that Wright Publications from the year 1999 till about 2004. Dr. Jim Wright is an absolute icon in this industry. First of all, if you look it up, he wrote one of the first ever comprehensive books on steroid usage. I know that's not something you're known by, but at the time, it was legal. And he wrote it, and it was pretty much the Bible for a long time. From there, he went on to write dozens and dozens and hundreds and thousands of articles for the Wright Pubs, Muscle and Fitness, Flex, and other magazines. He wrote it for Men's Fitness, Muscle and Fitness, Hers. The guy was a genius, and he was a no bullshit kind of guy. I'm going to tell you a little story. I just found out today, he died like 2 weeks ago. I'm out of the loop, and I happened to go to lunch with, I found out this morning, and I just happened to go to lunch with one of my old colleagues, Darren Clapprod. We were just discussing some stories about Jim over sushi. And it brought me back. Jim and I used to go to Morton's every week, just about every week or two. And he loved his martinis. He'd have a martini, I'd have a steak. Of course, we'd expense it. And remember, we used to just sit there and I used to pick his brain about science and supplements and training and steroids and everything I can learn. I absorbed it like a sponge. He was it was the best. Actually, I did pay for a lot of it out of my own pocket, but it was much less expensive than a college degree, which I got much more than college could ever give me by talking to Dr. Jim Wright. Here's an anecdote about Dr. Jim's character. Editorial and advertising. Now you see magazines, they're a big clusterfuck. You don't know what's an ad, what's editorial. Back when I was at Wright, there was church and state. Ads were ads, edit were edit. They didn't cross. And I remember one time, I was a young hotshot ad rep. I was breaking records left and right. I was the golden child, man. I came in at 19 years old, set it ablaze, and worked my way up the company ladder. And I remember, while it was a small ad, I used to break open new accounts like that, right? And I remember, I'm not being arrogant, I really kicked ass. I loved that job. And I remember Dr. Jim, one story, I had a good base of clients, but when you work on that, for those of you in sales, you work on that one close, and you finally get it, no matter how big or small, it feels so great. And I remember I worked for about probably 8 months on this ad that we wanted to run for deer antler velvet. I was selling ads. Don't hate me for it, man. I had bills to pay, right? I just accepted their money for advertising. I didn't recommend it to use. Anyway, so I worked it out with the people who did the layout of the magazine and production. Pagination is what it's called in the layout of a magazine. They paginated it where the article on deer antler velvet was here. She was able to work the ad for deer antler velvet over here. Little did I know the article for Deer Antler Velvet was written by Dr. Jim Wright. And Dr. Jim Wright, kid you not, the article was entitled, "Deer Antler Velvet is a waste of money, take creatine instead." I never got any money for that. I called him up, I'm like, don't pay me. Just thank goodness. And I went up to Dr. Jim and I said, dude, what the hell, man? You're ruining me here. He said, well, it is bullshit, isn't it? I said, well, you got a point. It is bullshit. So, Dr. Jim, I believe in God. And I believe Dr. Jim's in a good place right now. Dr. Jim's with all the other great scientists, albeit in different industries of our time. He's up there with Joe. Another man we recently lost, Joe Wright. Another guy I worked with at Wright Publications. You look back on things like this, and this guy was a pioneer in the industry. And when Joe died, everybody did a video and this and that, and I'm not going to get any freaking views on this. I don't care. People need to know, the two people who watch this, who Dr. Jim Wright was. He was a man who stood for science. He was a man who stood for ethics. And he was just a good dude who had we called him the reader of Muscle and Fitness, whereas I call people consumers now. He had the best intentions for the reader's results. He was the first one when people were like, oh, caseinate, this and that. He wrote an article that said whey protein is all you need. Quantity over type. His thing was just get in enough protein, you're good to go. And I say that to this day. So to that, Dr. Jim Wright, rest in peace. I hope you guys who watch this know a little bit more about Dr. Jim, his years at Weider Publications, his years at Weider Nutrition, and the fact he's a pioneer in all areas of this industry, even steroid use. I appreciate your time, appreciate you watching this. Marc Lobliner, TigerFitness.com, learning from mentors like Dr. Jim Wright, true leaders in this industry. That's not a game.